I'm going to call the meeting to order. The time is 7:03, and we'll start off with a roll call, please.
All right, I'm going to be going in order as the commissioners appear on my screen. We have Commissioner Glass. Here. We have Commissioner Min. Here. We have Commissioner Bajaj.
Present.
Commissioner Garcia.
Here.
We have Vice Chair Simpson.
Here.
And Chair Funabashi.
Here.
With Commissioner Hannon absent.
Okay, and perhaps he'll be joining us. Okay, let's all rise and we'll salute our flag, and we'll have our Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. I presume all of you have had a chance to take a look at the agenda. Really only two key items on our agenda this evening with presentations. And I noticed that there were no items in the blue folder section. So obviously I'll be looking for, I'll look for an approval of the agenda as presented.
I would make that motion.
Do we have a second?
I will second. A second.
Okay, seeing as we're all live, I'll call the vote. All those say aye or yes?
Aye.
Aye. Yes. Do we have any who are opposed or any nay? Okay, hearing none, then our agenda is approved as presented. Again, there are no blue folder items. Move to item F, our consent calendar. These are business items except those formally noticed for public hearing or discussion. These are assigned to the consent calendar. The commission members may request that any consent calendar moved, discussed, and acted upon separately. Items removed from the consent calendar will be taken up under the excluded consent calendar section below. Those items remaining on the consent calendar will be approved in one motion following oral communications. We have our affidavit of posting. Had a chance to review the minutes, and were there any corrections or modifications that need to be done? If there are,
No.
Are just simply up if there. Okay, so seeing none, then, and also seeing that we have no excluded consent calendars, I will circle back then and now seek a motion for approval of the affidavit and the minutes. Do you have a motion from anyone for the consent calendar?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, we have Commissioner Glass. We have a second. Who did the second?
I did.
Vice Chair Simpson, thank you. All those in favor say aye or yes?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Do we have any nays or noes? Okay. Hearing none, then move on to public participation on non-agenda items. This section's intended to provide members of the public with the opportunity to comment on any subject that does not appear on this agenda for action. This section is limited to 30 minutes. Each speaker will be afforded 3 minutes to address the commission. Each speaker will be permitted to speak only once. Written requests, if any, will be considered first under this section. So I'll ask the staff, do we have any written requests or anyone with line wishing to address the commission on non-agenda items at this time?
There are no e-comments or any attendings for this item. Thank you.
All right, super. Thank you very much. No public participation on non-agenda items. Seeing no items from previous agendas or items that we need to discuss prior to act. We'll move on to section J, I should say, which are items for discussion prior to action. And we'll start off with the staff presentation on J1, which is the Redondo Street and Monterey Boulevard always stop controls. So we'll hand it off to staff for the presentation now.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and fellow commissioners. It's good to see everyone again. As Chair Funabashi has mentioned, my first presentation tonight is the Redondo Street at Monterey Boulevard all-way stop control presentation item, if you will. So this was this item was initiated per the direction of the City Council. So it actually was started off by a referral from Mayor Brand and the City Council following the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget discussions. But of course, there had also been requests previously from residents and residents from Hermosa Beach, as well as some of the staff members from Hermosa Beach. And so the City of Redondo Beach staff kind of took this item, if you will, and we kind of performed an analysis for an always stop control at this intersection. As you can see here, we have Redondo Street and Monterey Boulevard. This intersection, as indicated by the red line here, is a jurisdictionally shared intersection between the cities of Hermosa Beach and Redondo Beach. So to the north side, which includes this roadway of Monterey Boulevard, that's within the jurisdiction of Hermosa Beach, while the south side is within the jurisdiction of Redondo Beach. As part of our always stop assessment, as we always typically do, we review traffic volume data, pedestrian activity, as well as collision data. And I'll kind of go over some of, all the warrant criteria as presented as guidance within the California METCD in a follow-up slide. So we have here, I'm just going to briefly touch upon the vicinity map, if you will. So Redondo Street and Monterey Boulevard are both classified as minor arterials in the current classification map. The intersection is actually a T intersection, with Monterey Boulevard being on the north side, as mentioned previously, and then Redondo Street, which runs east-west, being on the south side. The speed limit in the westbound direction, which is in the city of Hermosa Beach, is 30 miles an hour, while the eastbound direction, so going westbound in this direction, is 30 miles an hour, and then eastbound along Redondo Street in this direction, the speed limit is 35 miles an hour. There's one travel lane and a bike lane in each direction, and it's separated by a raised median. The west approach, if you will, so the eastbound direction, has a left turn pocket. On the north side, has reverse angle parking east of the intersection, and then parallel parking to the west of the intersection. And on the south side, the side that's in Redondo Beach, has reverse angle parking both east and west of the intersection. As you can see here, there is a marked high visibility crosswalk on the east leg as well as the north leg of the intersection. So on Monterey Boulevard, which is located entirely within the city of Hermosa Beach, runs north-south and is actually currently stop controlled. There's an always stop control of approximately 750 feet to the east of the subject intersection at the intersection of Valley Drive and Francisca Avenue. And then to the west of the intersection, we have a traffic signal at the intersection of Redondo and Harbor Street. It's about 550 feet or so west of this intersection. Fronting development within the vicinity, which is mostly on the north side, is single and multifamily residential. The south side is adjacent, and it's adjacent to the AES site. There's a sidewalk, curb and gutter improvements on all the legs, on all the approaches. And then additionally, for the AM peak period of 7 to 9 a.m., all turns are prohibited except for the southbound Monterey Boulevard to westbound Redondo Street movement. So I'm going to briefly touch upon that turn restriction. It doesn't really contribute much to what the always stop controls are, but our field observations did identify that during that 7 to 9 period, a lot of the vehicles were violating and not obeying the turn restriction. And so it is stated within the administrative report that we would likely coordinate either with RPD and Hermosa Beach PD or one or the other to kind of enhance some of the enforcement at the intersection for that turn restriction. Just a few more photos, if you will, while you're on Redondo Street. This is the west approach, so looking eastbound, east approach, looking westbound. And then this is on Monterey Boulevard, looking east and then looking west. And as you can see right here, here's one of the turn restriction signs. So I'm going to briefly touch upon this. I know we've kind of brought this up numerous times before, but the California METCD, or the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, provides guidances in regards to assessing feasibility of multi-way stop controlled intersections. And as part of that feasibility assessment, provides warrant criteria. And so, for the installation of an all-way stop control, we look at kind of these four main warrants. Warrant A, if a future proposed traffic signal is there, a stop sign can go in the interim prior to the installation of a traffic signal. Warrant B, there's 5 or more correctable collisions within a 12-month period. Warrant C, during the 8 highest hours of an average day, we have these volume criteria that we're looking at. And then warrant D, if warrant B and C are 80% satisfied. As a follow-up to that, though, we also have within the California METCD some additional criteria that staff and can consider as part of engineering judgment, if you will, or based on field observations, or based on other mostly observations that generally are not as quantifiable, if you say. So the previous warrants, there's very explicit values or traffic conditions, number of collisions, 5 collisions in 12 months, or the 300 and versus 200 number of vehicles and so forth, where there's a threshold that we have to meet. But in this case, there's additional criteria that can be considered. That's not really threshold based. It's more based on an observation and engineering judgment, if you will. So we have the first additional criteria, the need to control left turn conflicts. The second one is if there is potential or very visible outright vehicle versus pedestrian conflicts, typically at locations where there's high pedestrian volumes. The third one, which is one we've seen before, where there is a site visibility concern and the use of an always stop may help to address the site visibility concern. And then the fourth one, which is 2 residential collector streets. So this is more of an operational thing where there's higher traffic volumes on both streets, and then always stop would assist, one or two of the approaches or one or two of the directions to find an appropriate gap to be able to enter and cross through the intersection. As part of our analysis, we looked at vehicle counts, bicycle counts, and pedestrian counts during 2 separate days, August 10th and August 11th. On August 10th, we looked at a 7 to 9 a.m. peak period, and then August 11th, we looked at a 4 to 6 p.m. peak period. And so what we have here is the AM peak hour, which was identified as an 8 to 9 peak hour on Redondo Street. The vehicle plus bicycle volume was 575 vehicles or units, if you will. And then the peak hour, AM peak hour in Monterey was only 75. And then in the PM, which was identified as a 445 to 545 peak hour, vehicle plus bicycle volumes on Redondo were 784 units. And then the same period for Monterey Boulevard, there was only 107 units per hour. Pedestrian counts, AM peak period, only 4 pedestrians crossed, while in the PM peak period, we only counted 6 pedestrians crossing. Of course, we also looked at collision reports. Actually, for this specific location, instead of going within a 12-month period, we actually went back 5 years. So we did a 5-year SWITRS review, ending whatever available collisions we had up until the end of last year. And going through all the collisions that occurred or may have occurred at this intersection, there was 1 reported accident that occurred in June of last year. None of them, what we found was, whether it be the collision or the volumes, the main criteria, warrants A through D, were not satisfied. However, based on our field observations, we were able to identify a potential site visibility related concern. So for the speed limit at that location, the desired stopping sight distance is approximately 250 feet. And what we had found was that the actual measurable or measured sight distance was anywhere from 180 feet to 200 feet. And so we have about a 50-foot sight visibility deficiency, shortcoming, however you want to. So although warrants were not satisfied in regards to the original warrants A through D, our field observations did find that the limited visibility and the sight visibility concern and the criteria of a warrant for that could be applied, and the installation of an always stop control can be utilized to help address the potential site visibility issue. So what would that look like? So generally speaking, we'd be installing the stop sign in both directions along Redondo Street. We'd be installing a new limit line, new stop pavement markings, all way plates. The one interesting thing to note is in the current existing geometry and existing striping layout in the field, there's a limit line that we had identified as being improperly installed. And so what you can see is there's a limit line where it absolutely should not be. And so what we've also seen is that I can't say that it happens frequently, but every now and again, a vehicle would drive up, and in both directions actually, because it's not stop controlled, but vehicles would stop at the limit line. And so they're making improper stops at times because they see a limit line and they automatically equate that as having to stop. However, with the installation of the always stop control, we would be relocating. So this is the eastbound limit line back to its appropriate location. And then this westbound limit line then becomes appropriate with the installation of an always stop. And so we most likely would not be calling for the removal. It would just stay as is. Well, we may just refresh it in the field as we determine as appropriate. So coordination, we've reached out to the city of Hermosa Beach. We're in communications with them. We'll continue to have open dialogue with them. The intent here is following the Public Works Commission meeting, the Public Works Commission's decision will then be relayed over to the city of Hermosa Beach staff while we're preparing for our city council meeting with the commission's recommendation. And of course, we'll make sure that the Hermosa Beach staff and ultimately their residents through their staff will also be informed of the future potential proposed always stop at this location. I did get some word from the city of Hermosa Beach staff that their council as well as their residents, they are looking forward to our study and what the commission's decision is, but they're also looking forward to the installation of the always stop at that location. So the recommendation for the commission's consideration tonight is to review the engineering report, receive public input, and provide direction to staff regarding proceeding with the traffic control modifications in the consideration to install always stop controls for the section of Redondo Street and Monterey Boulevard. That concludes my presentation, and I'm here if you have any questions.
Very good, Gene. Thank you so much. Very, very, very crystal clear, and definitely a three-way intersection that I think most of us are, if not all of us, are certainly familiar with. So before we dig into our commission's deliberations, though, I want to ask of staff if we have anyone from the public or either with us live on Zoom or with any current written comments on this topic before we jump in.
Yes, apologies. Actually, we are having issues with e-comments. Hopefully, we're going to get it started soon. Please just be patient with us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that update. I certainly can appreciate whatever the situation is, us just knowing it. Is it technical difficulties with people that are wanting to log on and address us in person via Zoom or just written comments?
It's via e-comments and attendees. Hopefully,
okay, so
you're gonna get it started soon.
Okay, so a combination of both. Okay, well, while that's being worked out, then I will, as I'm looking at the screen of our commission here in full screen mode, we can certainly start off with any questions or comments from the commission. So would anyone like to go first? Any questions or comments? Okay, I do see Commissioner Bajaj, his hand. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Funabashi. Thank you, staff, for that report. Just a quick question. When you're doing your design and you're putting the eastbound stop sign, how many parking spaces will be lost in that design?
The intent is to not remove any parking spaces as part of the installation, especially because it's the coastal zone west of PCH. We do run into some issues of having to remove and potentially relocate these parking spaces.
So you would put a stop sign and then maybe a supplemental, like secondary stop sign on the median?
Yes, that is something that we thought about. Obviously, it wasn't in the original concept, but I know that we are open to doing so if we need to.
Awesome. All right, great. Thank you.
Okay, next up is any. Okay, seeing none. I had a question.
Chairperson,
Staff.
you have Commissioner Hannon's hand that was up.
Oh, and I see Jim has joined us. I'm sorry, Jim, I did not see that. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Listen, I had a technical issue and called in about 5 minutes late. Will that affect the roll call, or can you include me in the meeting? Is it? I'm not sure what the protocol is on that, but anyway, obviously I'm here. I took a look at the staff's recommendation. I thought it looked good. I thought the 4-way stop was needed. Well, 3-way stop actually. But I was going to ask, I know when we got class 2 bike lanes on that street, both going east and west, or actually east and west. And we also have a bike way, a Cheryl's bikeway on Monterey. And I was wondering if it'd be possible that to put in the center island that there is a bike way on Monterey for the people that are leaving the ocean going east and that are in that bike lane. They may not discover that until it's too late, where if they knew about it in advance and there was a left-hand turn for cyclists, then they would have had a chance to move over into the left turn lane, which is where they should be. So it would prompt them to do the right thing. And I was wondering if that could be included in the Redondo Beach design, and then hopefully it will be considered in the Hermosa Beach design for the cyclists going towards the ocean, and maybe they may want to make a right on the Monterey bike lane.
Yeah, I think that that's something that we can look into and incorporating and coordinating with.
That'd be great. I know they do have quite a few cyclists that use both of those bike routes, so that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Hannon. Do other commissioners wishing to speak now? Okay, Commissioner Min, I see your hand up. You have the floor.
Thanks. It just occurred to me, are we required to install curb ramps as a result of the new 3-way stop? Or is that not considered an alteration? I'm not 100% sure.
There's already one in the existing condition. And so there already is a curb ramp on the south side of the east leg. And then basically connecting. So the crosswalks are going to be in their current existing state. And then the curb ramps are already there to accommodate the crosswalk that's already there. So
they don't have to, okay. That's good to know. But they don't have to be upgraded to current standards? Or they already are?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, perfect. Awesome. Great. Thank you. That's all I got.
Okay, any other hands? Okay. Did I understand, Gene, that this will be, obviously our comments and suggestions from the commission will be forwarded to mayor and council, but for this specific issue, that this will go before mayor and council for their final decision in forwarding additionally due. And is that right?
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit there. Do you mind restating that?
That our comments and suggestions this evening will still in turn go back to mayor and council for their ultimate suggestions on what be done at this intersection. It will be a mayor and council decision, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yes.
Okay, and I understand that. So having said that, I find it interesting too. Obviously, I think you were clear that the ADA compliant ramps at the either side of Monterey are in place already. I found it kind of interesting that red line that delineates the separation from Hermosa Beach and Redondo Beach isn't necessarily at the median in the middle, but it seemed to be rather up between the two lanes, or the lane and parking on the north side. If we were to undertake these modifications, Some of the hardware will obviously be in the city of Hermosa Beach. Is this something that we as a city would take on 100% of the expense, or how do we coordinate things like this when things are clearly in another city's physical location?
I think that for the most part, it kind of would depend on the magnitude of the project and what kind of discussion may follow. At least initially and so far, our discussions with Hermosa Beach have shown that, they seem very supportive of whichever direction the city of Redondo Beach wants to move forward in. But of course, if that direction happens to be the installation of the all-way stop, we haven't fully discussed. However, it's the installation of a sign, some of the striping and all that. I think one of the things that we may do is we may install, and the maintenance will just be separated between whichever city jurisdiction decides to do which side, or we may just split the actual installation cost. But it's a relatively nominal fee for the installation and the striping upgrades. So, I think that's we can kind of discuss it on the back end once mayor and council decide to move forward with this item.
Absolutely. And I did notice, obviously, that the expense breakdown that we may be sometimes accustomed to was not present in this particular presentation. But I think all of us are pretty mindful that stop signs and paint are not terribly expensive when compared to things like traffic circles and full-blown lights and things like that. So that's all I have for now. Thank you. Do we have any other commissioners with questions, comments, or concerns? Okay, then I'll ask again, staff, how we're doing with our visitors and guests technically.
Yes, apologies. We're working with Granicus to solve the situation, but unfortunately, it's not fixed yet. We have disabled e-comments. E-comments have been disabled. If someone wishes to submit an e-comment, please email cityclerk@redondo.org. And please make sure to include item number in the subject line. Thank you. Apologies.
Now that incoming email, is that something that's being monitored currently at this moment so that those comments would be received and could be presented right away?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's the best we can do, obviously, if we're having technical difficulties. And I don't even know if you can answer this question. Do we have an idea how many people might be wishing to address our commission tonight?
I haven't received any email in regards to e-comments or an attendee at this time.
Okay. All right. Well, Commission, obviously, we are aware that some in the public are wishing to address us. I'll make one final comment, and again, obviously, this is not a type of project that's going to break the bank by any means, but I travel Redondo to and from the beach there quite often, and I seldom find myself trying to get onto Redondo from Monterey unless I'm in Hermosa Beach. And so, well, I might agree that an always stop would certainly make the intersection more safe. I do see it also quite clearly as a benefit to those in Hermosa Beach traveling southbound, needing to generally make a left to go eastbound on Redondo, heading back up to PCH, which is obviously, I imagine from the counts, obviously that indicates, excuse me, that's a pretty traveled turn and everything. The only other thing that's kind of floating around in the background, which Gene, you were quick to point out, not only in the administrative report, but even in the presentation this evening, and that is a fairly significant number of violations of restricted left turns during those restricted warning. And what do we often say as a commission when we're trying to address and allay some of our public, of our neighbors, is always like, well, we should get PD on it, right? Because this is obviously enforcement, is not only a revenue generator for us, but for these cities, but, obviously it's the safety aspect when people are violating these left turn lanes at the busiest times of the day. Those restrictions are there for a reason. So I just want us to be kind of thinking about that as well. Don't know, obviously, that the enforcement is not something that satisfies, if we had, more issues. but that's why I think it's kind of important that we hear from the public. I also find it kind of interesting that 5 years, only one accident. And of course, granted, that one accident could have been prevented with traffic controls. But, you know, that's what I'm kind of picturing is perhaps a significant number of close calls, dare I say, because many of you know that it's a pretty significant four-way control stop where Valley on the Hermosa side and Francisca on the Redondo side come into Redondo. I mean, that's the stop just east of there. And yet I imagine cars anxious to get to the beach or whatever are probably, you know, gunning it pretty good westbound and probably frightening of, you know, a handful of drivers that are pulling out of Monterey looking to make that left turn. So anyway, that's all I wanted to kind of get out in this regard. Without public comment, I mean, I feel compelled to obviously at least put it out to the commission for further discussion.
What question?
And maybe even I see Ted's hand up. Do you want to say something to the commission, Ted?
I do, but Commissioner Simpson, go ahead and ask your question first.
My question was, right now you have the turn restrictions in place. If you go to an always stop, would those be removed? I'm not quite clear on that.
At this time, no. I think that requires a little bit more further discussion because I think the turn restrictions, the cause or the reason for the turn restrictions have to be a bit more explored if that becomes an alternative. And it didn't sound like in our discussions with Hermosa that they were even looking or potentially considering any type of turn restriction removal because the main turn restrictions are from Redondo to access Monterey. So that right turn going westbound or that left turn going eastbound. So it is prohibiting that 7 to 9 morning peak, possibly that cut through.
Down Monterey, that's what they want to avoid.
Correct, yeah, and I think
They
they're
don't want
trying
traffic.
to
Okay.
prohibit, and so I don't think they meaning the city of Hermosa Beach, is willing to remove that term restriction.
Now, my only other question is where did this idea originate? Was this something that Hermosa Beach proposed, or this was something that people in the neighborhood were seeking, or how did it come about?
The term restrictions or the always stop?
No, the always stop.
A little bit of both. You know, we had gotten some previous requests from the city of Hermosa Beach. A resident had possibly requested the installation of an always stop. I know that there was previous coordination some time ago, and I don't recall what the outcome from the Hermosa Beach side was at that time in regards to whether they found they had actually done a study or anything of that nature. But this time around, it was from mayor and council, and then following their recent budget-related discussions. And then as part of the budget discussion movement, there were a few always stop locations that staff was directed to look at, and this was one of them.
Thank you.
So,
Okay, thank you. Ted, you have-
Chairperson Funabashi, what I wanted to say, because Ms. Diaz from the clerk's office had just identified the alternate way for the public to communicate to the commission if they have any comments, I wonder if we can jump to not continue, but maintain J1 open, move into the presentation of J2, and at the beginning of that presentation, if we can announce that email address that the public can send to the city clerk's office one more time, so that gives them the opportunity to not only provide any of their comments and feedback on item J2, but that we're also expecting any of their comments or communications regarding item J1. Address J2, then come back to J1, see if there's any public comment before you take action as a commission on it.
Very good. I think we're all in agreement. That way we keep our meeting moving forward, and yet we have not certainly closed down further deliberation and ultimately perhaps a motion and decision or recommendations that we'll make later in the evening on J1. So following that advice, let's move to J2, Gene, and I'll hand it back to you for the presentation on the Barrel Heights Elementary School parking and loading zone modification. So it's all yours.
Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. All right. So my second presentation tonight, the Barrel Heights Elementary School parking and loading zone modifications. This one's going to be pretty straightforward. I'm going to try to go through it, not quickly, but maybe efficiently, if you will. So this particular project kind of all began in conjunction with previous discussions that staff had with the Barrel Heights Elementary School administration. If you recall, part of it was also the school-wide.
Gene, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Can we announce for the public, before you start your presentation, the way to communicate comments on both items J2 and J1, and then continue on with your presentation, and then we'll continue on with the commission's actions.
Sure. Would you like me to do that, or would you like Laura to?
If Laura can do that, that would be fantastic.
If you like to submit a comment for items J1 and J2, make sure to email cityclerk@redondo.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. So just continuing on, as I kind of stated, we had previous discussions with the Barrel Heights Elementary School administration, if you recall, as part of like this the citywide school traffic safety assessments. That's around the time when some of these initial discussions had started, and we kind of went through each and every one of the schools, Barrel Heights Elementary School being one of them, and we kind of identified how we can enhance some of the safety around the roadways adjacent to the schools. What came forth from there were some loading zones that we had determined, modification of signs, LED stop signs, and things of that nature. Now, the one thing that we had noticed in this area is that the existing signage that exists out there under the current existing condition, especially the ones that relate to school parking and the loading zones, is somewhat confusing. And number one, there's a lot of signs that kind of provide a little bit of a mixed message. And then on top of that, a lot of the signs that were used adjacent to the school, so basically the south side of Maria and the north side of Lucia, a lot of those signs were obsolete. And so staff kind of took a look and found a way to upgrade the signage, number one, to current California MBTCD standards, but also to provide something that's a little bit more efficient and understandable in regards to guidance signs, especially for loading and parking restrictions for the motorists, as well as the numerous parents that pick up and drop off their children at these schools or at the school. Just real briefly, Barrel Heights Elementary School we have here. We have Barrel Street, Lucia Avenue, excuse me, Carnelian Street, and Maria Avenue. Currently, there are existing no parking. There's parking restrictions during the school hours from 7:30 to 4 p.m. at specific locations along Lucia Avenue and along Maria Avenue to kind of provide these loading zones to drop off and pick up the students. So we all know school-related traffic is very frequently problematic. Typically about 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes in the afternoon. So think about 15 minutes before and after drop off and 15 minutes before and after pickup. During these times, congestion is heavy. And unfortunately, we do get a lot of parents, drivers of school-aged children who exhibit very inappropriate driving behaviors. And not unlike this area, it's been observed and observed numerous times during our field visits. And so, as mentioned previously, the intent of these proposed modifications is to not just reduce congestion, but to kind of create a little bit more order for parents who are loading and unloading their children, for school activities and things of that nature. And of course, to kind of help to create an environment that enhances safety and mobility within the school area, especially for the motorists, even pedestrians and the bicyclists as well. This is kind of it's a general cleanup, if you will, of a lot of the different types of signs that are out there. Existing parking restriction signs during the school hours on both Lucia and Maria Avenue. as mentioned previously, do create these loading zones. The loading zones that are already in the existing conditions can be retained with a few changes. And so we're basically removing some of the begin and end signs because sometimes that's confusing to residents. Instead, we provided an enhancement of using the arrows so that they're a little bit more easier, the indications a little bit more easier to identify with. So we can, the loading zones on Lucia Avenue on the east side is between 250 feet and 370 feet north of Cornelian. Maria Avenue on the west side between 50 and 210 feet south of Beryl Street. And then the one thing that we are kind of looking to change and reintroduce is to supplement these existing loading zones with the creation of a 30-minute time limit parking that would provide short-term parking only for parents to leave their vehicles so that they can enter the school or they can stand in a more visible and open location adjacent to the school ground so that, when they need to go pick up their kids or when the students are dismissed from school, that they're a little bit more easily accessible. And so the locations for these 30-minute short-term, very short-term parking on Lucia Avenue on the east side would be between 20 feet and 250 feet of Cornelian Street, and on Maria Avenue on the west side, anywhere between 210 to about 425 feet south of Beryl Street. So basically, in a nutshell, what we're proposing here is to clean up the signs, remove the old signs, get new standard signs in, create some of the language, remove some of the begin and end type language for the parking restriction signs by introducing arrows, and then to kind of clean up the existing loading zone area from the 7 to 4 parking restriction loading zone area, and then now newly creating a 30-minute short-term parking only area along Lucia and Maria Avenue. If you recall, the 30-minute parking, short-term parking is something that we've used in numerous locations throughout our city, especially at locations very immediately adjacent to schools, because this kind of creates this quick turnaround area for parents to be able to wait to pick up or drop off their children. And so far, in the locations or the schools that we've used them, we haven't really heard anything negative, if you will, in regards to the short-term parking. And at least in some of the discussions that we've had with school administration, they seem to like the fact that there's a short-term, quick turnaround location that's specific to just certain times of day. This is just, and you can see it's, speed limit, and then tow-away, no parking, and then valet and, crime watch, obsolete street sweeping sign, and faded. And so we're kind of really just trying to clean a lot of these signs up so that it's once you get to the location, a lot of the signage, it's more clear and easily understood as opposed to what you see here in the existing condition. Coordination, of course, is ongoing efforts with Beryl Heights Elementary School. This is something that we were hoping to kind of push through before the school year started. Fortunately, some other projects and items had come up, but all things considered, we found this as the first opportunity to kind of go ahead and move forward with this specific item so that we can help Beryl Heights Elementary School enhance some of their sign and their loading zone related concerns. So the recommendation for this project and for the specific item is to review the staff report to receive public input and provide direction to staff regarding modifications to the existing traffic control signage adjacent to Beryl Heights Elementary School as indicated in the previous slides, and of course, as indicated within the administrative report. That concludes my presentation. I'm here if you have any questions.
All right. Thank you very much, Gene. I just had one quick, just for clarification, and the presentation was pretty clear, but just so we're all clear. So the no parking from 7 to 4 will be on the 2 streets that are east and or west, adjacent to the actual buildings. And then the restricted 30-minute appears to be along further down those 2 same streets, but along the playground area. Does that seem right as far as the actual? Okay, thank you. So you know what? I'll put a real quick plug into anyone in the public. If you've been with us for the meeting for a little while, you probably are aware that we're having some technical difficulty. If anyone is watching our meeting in the public and wishes to make a comment or question. Unfortunately, technically, we're not able to bring you into the meeting through the Zoom process this evening, but you can send your comments by email to cityclerk@redondo.org. And that can be either for this item that we're discussing now, J2, the Barrel Heights Elementary School, or a reminder to those that may want to make comments by first item J1, which was our discussion on the Redondo Street and Monterey Boulevard always stopped. So do we have any of the commissioners? I'll ask you now for questions or comments on J2 that we're discussing now. Do we have any questions or comments?
You have Commissioner Hannon and Commissioner Simpson's hands both up.
Let's see. Okay, I'll start off with Commissioner Hannon. Oh, here we go. Okay. Commissioner Hannon, you have the floor.
Thank you. I really appreciate cleaning up the signage. I often noticed that was very confusing, and you got the activity of kids coming out of school, crossing the street, and there's so much going on there. And of course, you want people to look at the road, not necessarily the signage. And when they look up at the signage, it was very confusing. So thanks for sorting that out. I think that's going to be a big improvement. I want to acknowledge the fact that we have a Class 2 bike lanes on the both sides of Barrel Avenue, and thank you for that. I live in that area. Matter of fact, we've had 2 or 3 safe pedestrian and safe bicycling events at Burrell School. And I know there's a lot of kids in the area that just live a few blocks that are anxious to get back riding their bikes and walking to school. In addition, I happened to be walking by there this morning. I met a woman taking her child to school on an e-bike, and had a little cart in the back, and she was dropping the child off, and I stopped to talk to her, and I asked her if there were any more like her, and she said, yeah, there's several in the area that would that also take their kids to school and leave their cart home, which is great. And she noted that, if people felt a little bit safer, that there would probably be even more mothers that would feel comfortable doing this. So with that, I started to take a look at the 3 surrounding streets that did not have any bicycle facilities on those, and that would be, of course, Lucia, Maria and Cornelia. And I wanted to suggest that we put a Class 4 Cheryl pavement markings on those streets. I think, when you look at what the intentions are of Cheryl's, are just, the speed limit's posted 25 miles an hour, which is suitable for a road with Cheryl's on it. But it's intended to alert the motorists that they should slow down, pay closer attention to the road, as they might encounter a school child on a bicycle in that area. And it would serve purpose, I think, certainly, hopefully maybe get more mothers like this lady that would ride there or take their children to school and maybe get out of their 4,000-pound car and make it safer also. But also, I think the Cheryls will serve a reason that we can probably have better behavior around that school and with the Cheryls. And I think that it would serve a purpose, and I'm hoping you feel the same way. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Hannon. I'll hand the floor over to Vice Chair Simpson.
Chairperson Funabashi and Vice Chair Simpson, before we allow you to please provide your comments, I just wanted to let you know the city clerk has advised us that e-comment is now back enabled. So we want to advise the public that e-comment is back up and operational. So if they have any comments on items, either J2 or J1, to please go ahead and use e-comment for the commission. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ted. I appreciate that. Simpson, I'll give you the option of proceeding with your questions or comments, unless you'd rather We're here from the
Just
public
very
now.
quickly going to say that it looks, anytime you have a bunch of confusing signs, they ought to be replaced. And it does seem to be exactly what you're doing there. And I think that's a very good effort and support it.
All right. Thank you, Vice Chair Simpson. Then I will go back to staff now for those e-comments.
Looks like we don't have any comments at this moment so far.
Okay, and so no other means of communications coming in at this time, is that right?
No, we haven't received anything, but it's open now.
But it is now open. Oh, again, as our staff has said, the communication line is open for those in the public that do wish to make questions or comments of our commission this evening. So let me check and see, do we have any other commissioners with their hands up that would like to address? We're currently on J2, the Barrel Elementary topic at this time. Okay. Well, I'm going to take it because that presentation was so cut and dry, and we're always supportive of getting rid of old signs and making it easier. Actually, I think our recommendations from staff are pretty clear. Does anyone on the commission wish to make a motion at this time?
Yeah, I'll make them. You're talking about J2, right?
That is correct. Yeah, J2, the staff recommendations for the signage and upgrades and all that stuff around Barrel Heights Elementary School.
Yeah, I'll make the motion. Yeah, simplify those signs.
Okay. Would you elaborate just for the sake of staff, just so it's pretty clear what your motion is? Are we following the directions and advice of staff, or I'll leave that to you?
I like most of Commissioner Hanson's recommendations, but the Cheryl's, I think, would be like adding another sign on the street. So I just whatever staff can do to I know it's a tough situation to in those zones you have multiple policies on those same streets. So yeah, it just takes some effort, but I know you can do it, and it's whatever you can do to reduce the signs instead of 5 or 6 signs, bring it down to 2 and 3 at the most or something like that.
And I also obviously understand that our comments and suggestions, even motions that we'll make as of now, will obviously be coordinated with the Barrel Heights Elementary School administration. So I'm sure there'll obviously be some additional discussions before full implementation, but obviously looking to, obviously formulate that. So was the commission clear on Commissioner Garcia's motion? And is that something that I think that was fairly clear for.
I understood him to be supporting staff's recommendations and possibly looking into the possibility of adding the bicycle markings where appropriate.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't look like it's adding more signs. Yeah, I don't have anything against Sharrows, but how are you going to put it in when you're trying to take down signs? And what are you going to put a bike lane sign there too? But I don't know. but yeah, I'm definitely for reducing the number of signs, because I know in Culver City they had 10 or 15 signs on a pole, and they couldn't give out tickets on it because they were contradicting each other on some of the signs. So, but this one, we don't have that situation, but it's, growing towards that. And so, yeah, just to maybe think of something to bring those signs, down, maybe, I don't know. I'm sure staff will come up with something, but yeah, there are ways to reduce the number of signs per pole. But yeah.
Well, then, and if I hear you.
Staff recommendations, yes.
Yeah, I think to be concise, I think it was pretty clear that that we were in agreement, or certainly that the proposal might be for us as a commission to recommend following staff's recommendations, that we would, but also with a consideration perhaps as a separate item if items related to enhancing the bike path, whether with the sharrows and or signage, could be an additional component in addition to the specifics of what staff has read tonight.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to it. Yeah, that sounds good. I'm not opposed to sharrows.
Okay.
It's just that as long as you're not putting up another sign, what we're trying to defeat, and you go ahead and add more.
I hear you. Okay, so with that motion, I need a second.
I'll second the motion, and I really appreciate the consideration. By the way, the sharrows are normally markings on the roadway, not necessarily signage. So just to let you know that, just to clarify that position. But yes, I'll second it. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Very good. Before I call the vote, I see Ted, you have a comment or question? You have the floor.
I do. Thank you, Chairperson Funabashi. Just for the record, I don't believe we've received any new additional comments, but if the chair would like to ask the clerk's office if there are any either new e-comments or emails before you take action on the motion.
They are
Absolutely, and I appreciate you bringing. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, apologies. There are no e-comments or no attendings at this time. We did do a test e-comment.
Okay.
It's working. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for that update. I appreciate it. And obviously I was going to give our commission one more opportunity to deliberate a little bit more before calling the vote. If there are any of you that have any questions or concerns about the motion that's on the floor, obviously, and or anything to add before I call that vote. Do we have anyone? Do I see Commissioner Min's hand up? You have the floor.
Thank you. Just not more of a comment for staff in relation to Commissioner Hannon's sharrows. I mean, I think that we recently put bike lanes on. Was it not Barrel? Was Prospect? No, it was on Barrel. I think we put bike lanes on Barrel, and so it makes a lot of sense to make that bike connection to the school on the cross streets. So I think that, just echoing Commissioner Hannon's comments, I think that's a really great one, and I would support that.
All right, here. Do we have any other comments or questions from the commission? Okay, well, seeing none, then I will call the vote. Again, it was pretty clear that we as a commission, with an affirmative vote, would be voting to support staff's recommendations with a consideration added for the sharrows as well. So, Jean, I'll ask you to take a oral vote on this one. So it's totally official.
In no particular order, just as you guys appear on my screen. Commissioner Min,
Yes.
Commissioner Glass,
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia,
Yes.
Commissioner Hannon,
Yes.
Commissioner Bajaj. Yes, okay. Vice Chair Simpson
Yes.
and Chair Funabashi.
Yes. All right, very good. Seeing that was unanimous. To see that. And again, just seeing one last update from Laura. Do we have anything, any e-comment? I don't want to circle back to J1 for a little more conversation there. But do we have anything from outside?
No, we don't have any comments at this time. Thank you.
Okay.
And Laura, for
Thank
the
you
record,
for the
are
update,
there
obviously.
I'm sorry, Chairperson. Laura, for the record, are there any emails to the city clerk's office?
No, there are none.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, as we circle back again, I had to imagine, barring that it's obviously summertime, many people are away on vacation, and depending on how widespread the communication might be on our topics. I mean, obviously it's a posted item on our agenda. I really did anticipate even residents of Hermosa Beach chiming in on the J1 discussion on the always stop. And it almost seemed, if I heard staff correctly, that there might have, I wasn't quite clear if there were some that were trying to get through and weren't because of the technicalities. But I think at this point, we've obviously exhausted all efforts to make it available. Those who are able to observe our meeting in present know this means to get a hold of us. And even in absence of any kind of comment, we really, as a commission, don't have anything from comments or questions from the outside public to go by within our deliberations this evening. So I didn't know how all of you feel in terms of any additional light or input that you feel that you might need before moving forward with any kind of recommendation. Again, this is an item that will ultimately go back to mayor and council for their further deliberation. And however the technical interaction will go at that meeting, or if they'll even be meeting live in a month or two, obviously we'll yet seen. But I'll open the floor just, again, for any comments or questions. Is this something that we want to, propose a motion that we either agree with the staff presentations of an always stop or some variation of that with some modifications? I mean, I think it was pretty clear what the potential could be in terms of making it an always stop, basically stopping the cars on Redondo and the related signage, and even a correction at that intersection with a limit line that was kind of in the middle of. So is that Vice Chair Simpson's hand up? I'll hand the floor to you, sir.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I thought the staff report was very thorough and made a compelling case that indeed it makes sense to go to an all-way stop situation at that intersection. So I don't know if a motion is in order to support that, or you want to hear more comments before we go there. But if I would be inclined to make a motion to support an always stop. I mean, that's what I'd move.
And very good. That's what I'm looking for, is just a level of comfort that we as a commission have moving forward. I will tell you, and again, I don't have a crystal ball or any magic powers. I don't imagine anyone calling in from the community would be saying anything other than they want before they stop. I could be wrong, and obviously I'm just kind of speaking out loud, but I just don't see that many people calling in to say no, don't do that. I think we've asked all the questions and we all pretty much clearly understand. I think that the fact that this will go back to mayor and council will give the public, another opportunity to really address this issue, and then the decision of what will actually happen will be made. So we have did I hear that right? We do have a motion.
That was I intended that as a motion. Probably wasn't as well phrased as it could have been, but I meant that as a motion to support the recommendation for an always stop at that intersection.
I'll second that motion.
That sounds pretty clear. We have a second from Commissioner Bajaj. One last bite at the apple. Any questions or comments from our commission? All right. Gene, then I will ask you to call, an oral vote, please.
Sure. Commissioner Glass?
Yes.
Commissioner Min?
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia?
Yes.
Commissioner Hannan?
Yes.
Commissioner Bajaj?
Yes.
Vice Chair Simpson?
Yes.
And Chair Funabashi?
Yes. All right. Very good. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Chairperson Funabashi, were you turning the floor to me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You have the floor.
I just wanted to make one last comment regarding this topic to anyone that may be watching this or participating with us without the ability to communicate on item J1, which is the always stop controls for Monterey and Redondo. As the chairperson has stated, this is an item that will be going to the city council at some stage. So if you feel like you have comments, you may send them to the city clerk's office and or to our engineering office. The city clerk's office email is cityclerk@redondo.org. And that will be added to the package of material that goes to the city council. The alternate email is redondoengineering@redondo.org. That comes to the engineering team, and we will incorporate those comments back in as well to the city council when we take this item to the city council. So we just wanted to let you know, in case you're having any technical difficulties in reaching us, there is still that opportunity to bring your comments to the city council. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and thank you very much, Ted. And I guess I do have a question. Do we have a rough idea when this item will go ahead before mayor and council? I know it's sometimes difficult to determine what an agenda item will reach, but can we share any? Can you share any kind of when it'll go back?
Yeah, at this time, it's tentatively scheduled for sometime in September, is what we have it scheduled for.
Okay, thank you. So obviously that would be sometime next month. So we don't have forever on this item, obviously, but at least I'm appreciative and it's out there that the public has obviously every opportunity to comment going forward from this evening on. So thank you for that. Okay, let me look at our agenda here. We're now at item K on our agenda, which is members' items and referrals to, and I'll just kind of start. Commissioner Glass, do you have any items for staff?
Hi, I would have a few, yes. In the past, I brought up a concern about bicyclists. You know, I know we're allowing them to go everywhere by putting in all of the bike lanes and everything, but I continue to worry a lot about the cyclists who continue to disregard all traffic signs, stop signs, and go straight through, give you the finger, whatever, if you tell them they can stop. And so I would like to have, I think that we ought to consider putting little bike symbol signs like they got down on the bike path by the Strand at every stop sign to remind the cyclists that they have to obey the laws also. Okay, I've got a question for Gene about the standard sign for street sweeping. You know, it's always had, like on my street, it says 9 to 12 on Wednesdays. So right now it's going to simply say no parking 9 to 12 on Wednesdays. I think you're going to get a bunch of people who are violating all of a sudden because the natives around here tend to watch for the street sweeper, and as soon as it's gone through, and along with the parking enforcement people, they simply go and park again well before the period has expired. And so if you're going to change the signs, we ought to have some enforcement to get the message out. Do you understand what I'm talking about?
Yes and no. So the
Gene?
concern is that despite the sign stating that there is a parking restriction for a period, the concern is that residents are parking once the sweeper has gone by, even though it's within that parking restriction time.
Absolutely. And I think that's probably throughout the city. I don't think that my street is the only one where people who are, you know, looking at parking as tight are not trying to take advantage of the situation, knowing that, you know, they won't be ticketed because the parking enforcement vehicle follows the sweeper or precedes it.
And so are you suggesting a tighter time period or to modify the time period?
Well, actually, you know, we can do several things. One, we've been sweeping the streets long enough. We ought to be able to get it down to maybe a 1 hour period that they'll be kept empty. But the real point of what I'm saying is that there's going to be some confusion when the signs are started to be enforced. Because the new no parking sign has no relation to the street sweeping. And so people are going to go in and do that again, but they'll be violating the time period.
Chairperson, I mean, Commissioner Glass, maybe I can answer that for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
As far as the street sweeping is concerned, I think the spirit of the street sweeping signs are to have the street clear of any vehicle so that the sweeper is able to pick up any debris and material that's there.
Yes.
As far as narrowing down the window to a 1 hour window, that's very difficult to do because we have the window that's available or that's on the signs primarily to address concerns and or delays that may occur on the route. Sometimes it's because of extended amounts of debris that may be there different times of the year. Could be for mechanical breakdowns where the vehicle, needs a pit stop before it comes back and continues. But again, the spirit of it is to make sure that we sweep our street without any vehicles that are there.
No, I fully understand that.
And I think back to the other location that if we put in any other parking restrictions that are not street sweeping related, you're absolutely right. That is a restriction that is enforceable. And yes, somebody is going to get a citation outside of the street sweeping period during a period of time that is a restricted parking area. So unless you've got a specific location for us to look at, I think from an enforcement perspective, I wouldn't necessarily drive our parking enforcement to be out there looking for street sweeping sign violations after a street sweeper has passed through an area.
Okay, well, I just thought I'd bring that up. My last thing was brought up by the item J1, and that is that I looked at Google Earth and I noticed that on Aviation, between Robinson and Manhattan Beach Boulevard, there are no crosswalks. Okay, that's a long distance. Shouldn't there be crosswalks in that area? And I realize that's between Redondo and Manhattan Beach. But we've got like 7 or 8 streets and no crosswalks. And I do see people running through traffic to get across Aviation. Just food for thought. So that's my 3 items.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Glass. And it did make me think of a quite. I don't think that the presentation on the no parking due to street sweeping around Barrel Heights was intended to imply that every no parking due to street sweeping in the city was going to be changed, because I do think it's important that the bulk, virtually all the signage throughout the entire city that is restricted parking, no parking from 12 to 3 or 8 to 11, whatever it is, that it does state pretty clearly due to street sweeping or something to that effect, because we do know generally that it is legal to then pull into that parking once the street sweeper has come through. Sometimes your neighbor will didn't come through. Other times you can pull up in front of your house and it looks cleaner than when and it's, and I will add probably as a compliment to you in the department, Ted, that usually Athens comes through just about, within the first 5 to 15 minutes after it starts. But we can't tighten up that window because we've got to make allowances for things that break down and other reasons that could slow them down. A 3 window is pretty generally accepted. And you just come to know in your own neighborhood how accurate, like I said, by 12:15, certainly 12:30 at a 12 o'clock start, we're able to park in my neighborhood. So, but it's important, obviously, to be clear what the restriction is due to so that people really know they can. And lastly, that community service PD follows doesn't follow, they're right ahead of the street sweeper writing those tickets. So the system seems to be working, and it's nice that it's been back after a bit of a hiatus, dare we say, last year because of all the cars that couldn't be moved, people being home and all. It's nice to get our streets swept.
Okay, I was just trying
again. So that's my 2 cents.
I was just trying to bring up that there might be some confusion if the signs were all changed.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to clarify that we're not looking to change every sign in the city, that it'll still be pretty clear that restriction is due to the street sweeping. So that it really is just barrel height around the school. So Commissioner Garcia, do you have any referrals for staff this evening?
No, I don't. I just want to say I agree with Commissioner Glass that, I'm one of those guys that parks after the street sweeper goes by if I want to get a few more winks of sleep or something. You know? But yeah, I've adapted to the system that's there, and so I don't really have any complaints. So
Here, very good. All right, Commissioner Hannon, anything for staff this evening?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I know I actually wanted to acknowledge Mr. Glass. I know that he's mentioned this before about cyclists running stop signs, and I can't help but respond a little bit to that, because just to let you know that I know people, whether they drive a bicycle or they drive a car, I mean, they do go through stop signs, and they go through stop signs for various reasons. But I know humans run stop signs. They always have, probably always will. But just to let you know, the South Bay Bicycling Coalition is working with the Redondo Beach PD to reinstate traffic school program for the cyclist. And this has now been reinstated here in the last couple of weeks. So when a cyclist gets a ticket for running a stop sign, just like motorists have had for the last 3 decades, they will have an opportunity to attend a traffic school class, 3.5 hours, and get the ticket removed off to their record. I know that this is not going to be 100%, get everybody to do what they're supposed to do on the road, but I think it's a step in the right direction, because it's really a combination of enforcement and education, and I think that will help. So anyway, I couldn't help but acknowledge that. Also, I just wanted to say that I think this will likely be my last meeting as I term out in September next month. And so I just wanted to say, if I am back next month, great, but I don't think I will be. But I just wanted to say it's been a wonderful 8 years. It's been a pleasure working with my fellow commissioners and staff. You've taught me so much in the last 8 years, and I really am grateful for that. And I know maybe I was a little bit reluctant to accept some of this teaching you provided me, but when I look back, it was very helpful to me to understand how this whole system works, and I think it does work. And I'm really proud of Redondo Beach and the residents for having this opportunity for people to participate in something like this. So anyway, thank you so much for that, and I wish you all well. And I suspect I'll call and do a meeting here and there in the future. But thank you.
Well, Jim, I thank you, and I'm only hoping that you're off by a month. I know that our commissions usually start up again in October, so maybe staff can clarify our terms. It seems like you would still be with us at next. I see on our agenda that we have a meeting scheduled for September 27th next month. So I'm hoping that we'll see you there.
Well, it'd be nice, but I think they're supposed to announce the new commissioners. I think that's first or second week in September. So we'll see. We'll see. I'll keep my fingers crossed. So it's been a pleasure.
All right. Well, obviously it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure, obviously, and I think many of us would agree to, serving beside you on the commission, and even running into you, as I often do, on different events and different things we're doing around town. So I know I'll be seeing you again in the future too. So that'll be great. Yeah. Okay. Commissioner Bajaj, do you have anything for staff or any requests?
Yes, I do. It's not really for staff. It's just, maybe it is. It's just generally speaking. Over the summer, just through various activities, I ended up having some engagements with some Redondo Beach Public Works field staff. I just wanted to recognize them. They were all very professional, very kind, very courteous during our engagement in the field. And, I wanted to mention this to staff as, if you have a chance to pass on my kudos for these people to their supervisors, I would appreciate that. One gentleman, his name was Melton. I didn't get his last name. And he was at Veterans Park on a Sunday morning or on a Saturday morning cleaning up debris from the evening before. We were out there early to, stake out a spot for a picnic. And, there's just a lot of debris and trash that gets left out there every afternoon at Veterans Park or every evening because the seagulls get into the trash and, you know, people leave the trash bags next to the trash cans instead of in the trash cans, which have the black lid to protect them from the birds. So a lot of folks just leave bags next to them, and then at night the seagulls get into the bags. But you know, he was there, smile on his face, bright and early. I let him know we were picnicking and asked him about the trash, and he had let me know that that's a common occurrence. But then he gave me a few extra trash bags and said, you know, please tie it up. And nonetheless, he was just really pleasant guy, you know, out there working on a Saturday morning, really nice, professional, and just, you know, was still rather cheery for being, you know, that early and seeing the task on his plate. His name was Melton. And then the other two were two gentlemen with street lighting. One guy's name was Roy Lacey. They were replacing a street light in the Port Royal parking lot, and they were doing some work out there. And just like I said, you know, I started talking to them, and they were just, you know, very pleasant and, you know, truly seemed to enjoy their job. So kudos to the Public Works Department. Roy Lacey's partner's name was Fred, and like I said, just, you know, very kind, professional, and you know, it exudes a good customer service, and I think it's always a pleasant experience for a member of the public if, you know, when the field staff are also very kind and receptive to conversation.
Thank you, Commissioner Bajaj. We'll make sure and pass that along.
Thanks.
Yeah, very good. Thank you for sharing that. Commissioner Min, do you have anything for any referrals for staff?
Yeah, I've got two general ones and one specific one. One is just a friendly reminder that I had asked, you know, at least twice now that we have some kind of presentation about the stormwater related type work that the city's doing. And I think Andy had mentioned that the city of Torrance was trying to partner with us on some kind of stormwater related project. And they were maybe going to present to the commission at some point. You know, this especially now with the, you know, impending drought and water restrictions and things like that. I think it'd be really important for the commission to hear, you know, what we're doing as a city to help with the drought and stormwater related capture stuff. So that's just a friendly reminder. If you could remind Andy to see if there's a way to schedule that for the commission, maybe the next meeting or the one after, whenever. Second is, you know, I'm very curious to see or to hear what we may be doing in relation to the new infrastructure bill that's coming down through Washington. We're talking like trillions of dollars. And are we prepared to, you know, get some of that? You know, how we're going to, I know some of that might be formula funding, some of that might be competitive grants. You know, I just feel like there's an opportunity here. We've spoken over multiple meetings about doing sort of a nicer kind of roundabout with landscaping and hardscape that actually the community would really like. You know, this could be an opportunity to get some funding to do something like that, right? Something that's kind of expensive and typically we wouldn't have budget for. So that's one area that, you know, I don't know if it has to be a report to the commission, but it'd be interesting to hear maybe informally what we're doing as a city. And the last thing is more specific. You know, in my neighborhood on Ripley, there's, I think, a utility that's been tearing up the street all the way from about McKay to Inglewood. Every 50 feet, they're digging a big hole. I think they're trying to lay some new pipe or replace an old pipe or maybe it's telecom work. But it's made the street really bad. I mean, it's just like these iron plates, right, that are covering up the holes every 50, 60 feet or whatever. And then I think last week I noticed they were cutting up some holes in Inglewood Boulevard where we just resurfaced like 6 months ago, maybe 8 months ago. So it's a brand new street that they've cut up. And so I you know, kind of in line with what we heard at the last commission meeting about the pavement preservation system that we're in, you know, I feel like I'm hoping that utility is going to pay to resurface at least a portion of Inglewood Boulevard, which we as a taxpayer had already resurfaced, and not just plug a hole that they cut, right? You know, at least maybe half block or maybe a few hundred feet each direction, just so that it's a nice, you know, street. And, you know, I guess likewise, I'm assuming that Ripley is going to be resurfaced soon because it's, this tree wasn't in great condition to begin with, admittedly, but now it's just a big patchwork of, asphalt holes that have been filled up over the course of the last couple of months. Anyway, so I would encourage, I don't know what the plan is for Ripley, but I would encourage that, the city look into some kind of fee to charge utilities when they do that kind of thing, and enforce the work that they do after they finish their excavations to be more complete than just patching holes. So those are my comments. Maybe at some point in the future we can address that or have more discussion about that. That's it.
All right, Commissioner Min, thank you very much. And then Vice Chair Simpson, anything for staff this evening?
Well, this is just a quick question. I've been hearing reports that there is the possibility of building some sort of an enclosed dog run in Andrews Park and adding a bathroom facility there. Is that in the works, or am I not hearing it correctly?
Nope, you are hearing it correctly. Those were part of the city council's actions on the budget. So those were part of the budget motion, and they are in progress, especially on the dog run area. We met with Councilmember Obaji last week or the week before, just to outline the area that he's exploring, and then the bathroom will come in later. The dog run itself is obviously simplistic. In relative terms, the restrooms would be a little bit more significant because it'll require design and plans and specs.
What kind of time frame on the dog run? I have a vested interest since I live about a block away and I have a dog.
We're exploring costs now, and it's something that we'll be able to do informally. Probably within weeks, you should be seeing something out there, I would assume.
Thank you. Nothing else.
All right, thank you, Vice Chair. The only thing that I'd like to bring up and or mention, and it's kind of piggybacking on Commissioner Min, and that is, how you guys have been really great at letting us know about different motion and proposals and decisions that gets forwarded to mayor and council, and when those topics will reach the mayor and council, so that we can certainly avail ourselves of those. And I guess what I'm asking is just kind of piggybacking on what he says. I mean, I often, as a citizen, am always curious when certain work is going to be done on a particular street. And I know Andy's presentation, our city engineer, not too many meetings ago, on how that whole system is prioritized. I still have to imagine that Public Works, that you have a list of the next streets and rough timeline when Ripley's going to be done, for example, at some point. And even though it doesn't necessarily need to be a topic of discussion at a Public Works meeting as part of the agenda, if there was perhaps that list could be included in our agenda package. And I'm not asking for extra work, just whatever timelines you already are using, in-house for Public Works. If that information could be shared with us, so we have a date line on when particular streets, I think we can kind of help, dare I say, with sharing that information with the public, encouraging them that this particular street's going to get certain time, with the understanding that these are flexible timelines. But if you're able to share that information, I think that would be great.
Yeah, Chairperson Funabashi, maybe I'll answer this real quick. We heard Commissioner Min's comments, and I think I'll be following up with him prior to anything, if necessary, to even come to the commission here. But as far as our roadways, I'll tell you, for the slurry seal and for the residential street rehab streets, we have been bringing that information to the city council upon completion of a pavement management study update, which is something that we do every 3 years. So a few months ago, we actually brought that forward to the city council and outlined all the roadways that are going to be proposed to be paved and is resurfaced over the next 3 years. We will share that information with you, either giving you a link or giving you the PDF of the roadway network that's basically proposed for either slurry seal and or gradient overlay. During the budget action, the council actually approved $1.5 million as well for deferred maintenance streets. And if you remember, the deferred maintenance streets are the ones that require full reconstruction. Those were never budgeted. They were not something that we earmarked for previously. The council has given us this $1.5 million this year We will be bringing that conversation to them over the next couple of months, just to determine which roadway they deem to be the most appropriate for us to utilize those funds on. But we'll get you the link and information on the 3-year plan, basically, that the council has approved for our slurry seal and residential street rehab streets. I'll send that to the full commission.
Thank you. I really appreciate that because, you know, some of us, I think we all have a vested interest in the improvement of our city. And every now and checking out, okay, when is this going to get done? And I kind of get excited when things, you know, closer to my home, like some of you do, just to know what's going on instead of what sometimes happens as much as we try to stay up, even in our position as commissioners, you know, you see them breaking ground on something or doing something and you're like, oh, what's going on over there? You know, we don't catch everything, but something concise like that would be greatly appreciated. So
Absolutely.
That's all I have. Thank you. Really appreciate that. So, unless anyone has anything else to bring up before we adjourn, I will move on to the adjournment and I'll call for a motion. Our next meeting, as I noted earlier, the next meeting of our Redondo Beach Public Works Commission will be a regular meeting at 7 p.m. on September 27th, 2021. So with that, I'll entertain a motion from any of you for adjournment.
Well, I would make the motion that we adjourn.
Okay, I think I heard Vice Chair
Until
Simpson.
September 27th or October 27th?
Yeah, can you clarify?
In tonight's package, the agenda shows September 27th. I didn't verify that is in fact a Monday, but
I think the issue is our meetings bi-monthly or monthly?
okay, so
If I can just chime in.
Okay.
They used to be monthly. Council made a motion previously to maintain and modify that to be bi-monthly. So that bi-monthly schedule is not being renewed. So we're going back to a monthly meeting. So 31st is actually when that schedule ends, and therefore starting September, we'll be reverting to monthly meetings.
And is that going to be as it is now, on Mondays?
Yes.
it does appear. So September 27th, the fourth Monday, which traditionally is our meeting, either the fourth Monday or perhaps in some cases it's been the fifth Monday because it was the last Monday of the month. Does that sound right? But either way, in most months with only four, it's that fourth Monday. Okay.
Right.
So I had a motion to adjourn.
I'll
I need a second. I see Commissioner Hannon's hand go up. And I'll call the vote. All those in favor of adjourning say aye or yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye, yes. Anyone opposed? Say nay or no. All right, seeing no, gentlemen, we're adjourned. The time is 8:36. I'll wish you all the best rest of the summer, and we'll look forward to seeing some of you out there too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.
Yeah.
Good night.